So, good afternoon, friends. Here we are in the Climate Literacy Session 7. And with me, we have three very eminent people who are going to be sharing their thoughts. And I'm Prabjot Sodi. On behalf of Mobis Foundation and all the other organizers, I welcome all the participants who are live with me and plus my three eminent panelists. With us, we have today Pramod Sharma, uh, who is the Senior Director of Education with the Foundation for Environmental Education, FEE, and he's responsible for the development of eco schools, young reporters for environment, and learning about forests in 75 countries. And he's leading the establishment of FEE Academy, online teaching and learning platform. That speaks many words for you, Pramod. Very warmly welcome to you. And
Thank you, Sodiji.
and I must also say a line about FEE. It's the world's largest environmental education organization. Its members are in 80 countries. My God, you have a thought process to give us. And um, welcome on board, Pramod. And I have another very eminent personality from the in-country program she heads the Global Institute for Circular Economy and Sustainable Development Goals, India. And she's the founder director for Circular Economy and SDGs. By SDGs, we mean Sustainable Development Goals. And she's the co-founder of Sanshodhan, an e-waste exchange private limited. And global company headquartered in India with having partners in US and EU. She's an expert member in the many committees and she also committees formed by Niti Aayog, and she has won many awards to herself, and one of the major ones being the Digital Woman Award. Welcome aboard, Shalini, with us. We really warmly welcome you. And with me, there is another eminent speaker who is going to share her thoughts as well. That is Anjali Sechevina, wears many feathers in her hat. A mother, I love that word. Congratulations to you. That defines a woman. A mother, a committed social entrepreneur, a development professional, and a campaigner. That goes many a miles. She started a conscious business called Mandala Apparels in 2002 that manufactures organic fair trade apparels. She represents Fair Trade, which is an organization and speaks for itself. With 18 years of experience, she inspires industry level changes, both for social and environmental impacts. Her company is powered by strong commitment on sustainability and women empowerment. Very good. We warmly welcome you, and I don't need to tell much about Fair Trade. It's a well-recognized organization and trusted sustainability label in the world. And they have many statutes. They have created SOPs. At the start, Indian producers worked with Fair Trade to access international markets on better terms of trade. That's in short. For these three eminents, I can go miles together speaking a lot about them. But let me say a word of myself as well. And before we pass on the mic.
Let me introduce you, sir.
Thank you.
Greetings to everyone. Me, Shravan Kumar from Mobis Foundation, extends my warm welcome to all of you to be part of 7th parallel session of this conference on education for advancing circular economy. It's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Prabjot Sodi sir, who is a devoted environment professional and is currently serving as country program manager for Center for Environmental Education. He has working experience of 40 years in diverse domains of environmental sector, which includes implementation on the agriculture, non-biodegradable dry waste sector strategies, system thinking, materials flow, recovery center business models, informal sectors, including Safai Sathis, guest speakers. We also address the extended producer responsibility (EPR) domain and have been a driving force in partnership across governments, including ULBs, civil society, recyclers in the domain of waste value chain since last 10 years. Sir is also a member of 11 Niti Aayog Circular Economy Committee. In 2012, He received Talented Conservator Award by the George Washington University, Washington, D.C., USA. In 1998, he was awarded with the Most Excellent Order of the Member of the British Empire by the Government of the United Kingdom. Sir, it's always been an inspiring experience to listen your deliberations on various environmental issues. Thanks for agreeing to join the learned panelists of this session. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Shravan. Thank you very much for all your kind words and giving us the opportunity to be together here and joining us. I know you are fatigued in shuttling between the various panels and the plenaries, but let's go ahead. And before I pass the mic to how we will go about is Pramod, Shalini, and Anjali. First, I will say a few words and then we'll pass to Pramod, and then to Shalini, and then to Anjali. Please stick around 10 minutes to each so that we have some questions coming across from the people in the chat box, or we will have the questions coming from the people by raising their hands. So Shravan will be coordinating us and will be helping us in putting the presentations of the concerned people. That sets out the tone for the whole show. Now, to create, when we were discussing this whole program, there was a lot of discussion happening. How does circular economy, I'm not going to the concept of circular economy. These panelists are very eminent and they will add much value to it. I would rather say that the issue which really is that how circular economy brings a $1 trillion economy into the country, how it is adding incomes, how it is really creating better products. Something I wanted to lay a question and leave it with the audience before we begin is that what is exciting all of us in circular economy? We need to really pause and think what excites us in circular economy. That will help us the education for advancing the circular economy. Something which I wanted to always say was that something which excites me in order to really the education part is that if I have to buy a recycled or a regenerated product, then on the labeling of the product, I need to see how much it is in terms of a recycled material within that product. Now, sometimes the product is an end product in itself. Sometimes it's a part of the product, which is a component, say for any electricals. So I love to see, and this is a policy change which the government is also bringing in. Many fantastic policy changes have been held by the Prime Minister, Honorable Prime Minister. He has now announced on the Independence Day of the 75th year for India that we are going to have a circular economy mission. And that mission cuts across various sectors. And the 11 committees which have been formed are a tribute to his testimony, what he wants to do. So I think so that with India really going into 9 billion metric tons of all material consumption, we have to see consumption choices and how to create incomes across. And with India doing 9 billion, you can well imagine that the world is touching 200 billion metric tons for all materials across the sectors. So that shift to regenerate to a shared approach and to optimize the product efficiency is what we are going to hear today. And I will close here, and then I'll come back in the last part of the show in how to see that the incomes happen once we have listened the eminent speakers. And time starts now for you, Pramod. If you can please help him to put his presentation. Over to you, Pramod. Thank you very much.
My screen, sir?
Yes, I can.
Thank you. So I'm sharing a project that we piloted for 2 years, because when we were looking at circular economy, we realized that it's not a concept which is common in schools, and not much material was available. And we then developed and piloted a project we support with Lookout group that is also a pioneer in preparing material for which is in principles with circular economy. And we called the project Eco School Project Advancing Circular Economy, is because we thought that the role that we have as consumer is, and the way we influence the decision of producer is an important educational outcome that we can bring about from the schools that we work with. So, as Shodiji mentioned, we are a non-profit, non-governmental organization promoting sustainable development, now currently in 79 countries with 100 members. And we run two sets of programs: a school-based program, Eco School, learning about forests and young reporters for the environment, and tourism-based program, which are Blue Flag and Green Key. And all programs are run on a label based, and our members come to schools to plant trees. In 2020, we came out with a 2020-2030 strategy called Gaia, which is looking at three broad priorities areas. Empowering for climate action, protecting as part of reducing awareness on circular economy, and making our stakeholders take action on it is one of the major goal that we have put. So when we look at education from transforming from linear to circular economy, what we are looking at is basically moving from a linear economy to recycling economy, which is a dominant thing that is happening nowadays, and most of the industries, companies, or initiatives are talking about recycling, and then making that transition from recycling to a circular economy, which by definition reuses material for its eternity. But technically there are challenges and kind of things, and mostly you will see that we are at a different stage of recycling. When we look at the curriculum framework, this publication is available on website and on our EcoSchool website, and you will find different ways of how you can use learning amongst children to advance circular economy. When we are looking at knowledge, we are looking at competencies, we are looking at disposition, and also finally the change as behaviors and actions amongst students and the school systems. And when we see this package, what we tested was a set of educational material, set of assessment tools, and then experience of the 7 steps. And ultimately, what we are looking is with the symbol of handprint, which came from India, is that how our actions can reduce consumption, taking action that support resilience of our systems, which is a regenerative system, taking actions for waste minimization, support sustainable products and services, and increasing awareness of action that supports sustainability. So positive action is a core value at the Foundation for Environmental Education, and we have adopted the handprint as a symbol for denoting that, or giving that as a communication to our stakeholders across the world. And when we are looking at the education strategy, we are moving from we are educating about moving from linear to circular economy by recovering and reuse of materials, moving forward by extending the lifespan of products and its parts, and the last, which is basically smarter use and remanufacturing. And within that, we have strategies like refusing and reducing. As Sodiji mentioned, if we are aware of that, to what extent it is made of, a product is made of recycled services, then choose products and refuse products that are not made from recycled materials. And refusal is the biggest or the most effective strategy that I would say that can have the larger impact when we are there as consumers. And then reducing what that things that we don't need, kind of. But reusing, repurposing, sharing are the second level of strategies that we can afford. And if we can't do the first two, then recycling and participating and supporting recycling of materials, which happen very commonly in India in some paper, plastic, and metals, but then can be extended to other resources also, especially the organic matter and other waste that is generated in urban areas. And we use the 7-step process, which has been working for as a project-based learning over the last 7. And we have a set of lesson plans which support and goes through this 7-step process. And these are the concepts that we have included in when we are talking about education for advancing circular economy. is basically following the mystery trail, which is looking at from the where the product came from, is like ultimately life cycle assessment, and where how it was produced, what waste was generated in every step, and how what part of it was recycled. And when we know how a product starts and reaches you, and you consume it, you move to the second step, basically looking at identifying the principles of circular economy that I showed you in the earlier poster, and based on that, classified those products whether it's following linear, or is following recycling, or is following circular economy principles. And then we introduce a couple of case studies which are there. There are 100 organizations around the world which works with Ellen MacArthur, companies which works with Ellen MacArthur Foundation, and have introduced the principles of circular economy and included those case studies, so that children basically understand and can identify products which are meeting some of the criteria that, or the principles that are there of circular economy. And then get into designing naturally how circular economy as a principle has been motivated or is a learning from nature. And nature is a big basically the concept comes from there, because there is nothing in which is waste in nature, and everything is recycled and reused by something or some other as part of food chain or other systems that are there. And then look and then take them into the impacts of product and environment, and then prepare an action plan how they, after learning about circular economy, how it can be implemented in school, and how they can make their school more circular compliant, and then implement that action plans. And the last, which is about a design campaign, because 80% of how a thing will be used and what will be thrown out is decided at the design stage. So that is also an important skill that our children need to have as future designers, that how we can make products and services more circular in future, and then synthesize that as an eco code or eco charter, and then completing with the celebration of events and competition. And when we were looking at designing a product and services that took at least 3 months as a campaign, we look basically the steps followed were auditing the products and services and define the problem in terms of there should not be a waste, and what waste is being generated in that product and service production and consumption, developing design solution and test the prototype, and then give us a idea of presenting. And then this I think is an important area of learning when we are talking about advancing circular economy. And there were simple examples that we had used. For example, library is a good example of a circular economy where books are shared, lent, and which is an example that every child can relate to, or everybody can relate to. So instead of buying new, if you can just take a book on loan and read it and then give it back, and somebody else can use it. Similarly, toilet paper and other papers that we use, how that can be used and made from recycled paper. And the hygiene paper, and Lookout, who funded this project, is doing that. And third is basically, if these two things are not possible, still there is a waste generated, how pulp industry and paper industry can work and use that raw material like paper regularly for producing new virgin materials. And some of the questions that can help us look at it is that when you look at assessment of whether a product or a service is meeting the criteria of circular economy or not, taking the example of paper, that our paper products made of recycled paper, asking that question. And you can see many of the publications or notebooks have that symbol at the back, that how much of the paper was recycled. Where can paper use be reduced or eliminated? How we can eliminate the use of paper if where the waste is generated? Do the products have sustainability labels like Forest Steward Council? That's part of the regenerative. Using those labels to take that decision. What is done with the used books? Can we pass it to the next batch of the school, or we just throw them in the dustbin? Simple techniques. And however we can use paper, we refuse or safely dispose of. Ultimately, we cannot get into zero waste as of now, but how and where we can dispose of or put it in recycling. And then this framework guides us to assess the level of circularity in a school. Part 1 looks at education and part B environmental. And then we rank the schools as champion, aspirational, startup, or planner schools. So this is what we also are now training teachers through our FEE Academy as a website. And this is what I wanted to share. And this project was piloted in Slovenia and Latvia, and with 66 schools. And now we are sharing all the material with schools globally so that they can also participate in this program. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Pramod. I know that we should not have condensed your talk to 10 minutes, but that's what I had in time. And Shravan is the person who is driving us all. But I must say, you made some very, very great examples to the education system. One example which really touched my heart was the use of paper. And I must share with the audience that, I was talking in the paper industry the other day in the MRAI conference, and there one wise person, maybe a woman, must have 50 years back in India started that everybody has to sell newspapers. And we started storing them, and every house stores them and sends it by. But this has made a very sustainable dent in the whole regeneration circular economy. Whereas the white paper which we use, that has never been able to be collected. Earlier, when we were young, we used to donate some of these copies or sell them, and that paper could have been used. Now we are getting into a more wiser technologies. Shredded papers are not sent for the recycling or the refurbishing. You would not believe that newsprint collection is 96% in the country in India. And white paper, the collection is only 4%. So some wise women have played the role, and I hope more wise women will play a role. And I think we will come to Anjali when she said when she said that this is what is her journey of life, and that's something exciting for us, that we have to make that dent. 4% of white paper, and we spend our hard-earned foreign exchange in importing white paper. So that's a classic case, and we will really, over the next 10 years, I think that white paper will go up high and collections will happen inside the country. Over to Shalini. Ladies and gentlemen, we have another very eminent speaker with full of experience. Shalini, over to you.
Yes, sir. Thank you for handing over to me. So I'm just trying to see what kind of look I can have here. So now I'm good to go.
Thank you.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, please. Make it full screen, Shalini.
Yes. So hello, everybody. This is Shalini. Today, I'm going to take you through the journey of implementation of circular economy and more about the role that circular economy can play by providing the formal courses into the higher education, integrating the formal courses on circular economy for higher educations. So not taking much of the time on what circular economy is, because now we all know, and this diagram explains more than ever, it's more than reduce, reuse, and recycling. The whole concept is that how to keep the natural resources alive into the ecosystem to ensure the environmental security, the resource security for our next generations. And what is the whole thing about how it can be implemented into the educational sector? Because just now we heard about the use of paper, and there are many things nowadays in school and colleges. Now schools and colleges are open, and you can see there is a use of packaged food. There are various kind of electrical equipments that are being used. So we will say that, okay, the concept can in principle be applied to all kinds of natural resources, not only restricting to any kind of particular products, but look around the schools and colleges and see that what kind of products and materials are being used, and what can be then reused, what can be refurbished, what can be recycled, what can be, how the waste can be prevented. So taking this whole thing into a gamut and put together into a frame, and I will take you to some exciting programs that we are coming up in near future. So first of all, what are the challenges that we are having in India or many other developing economies? So people generally think that circular economy is something very hi-fi and not very common thing to be used in everywhere. So that's the reason. But breaking out the jargon, I will say that the circular economy can be implemented in any kind of organization, institute, for the product, for the offices, for the buildings. So coming to the educational institutes, there are not many courses, not many countries who are having these kind of courses implemented in their educational institutions, and India is one of them. What is the next reason that this kind of course is not so very common? The next reason is the shortage of expertise. When we go towards the advanced level, we see that there is a particular kind of an expertise required, not only the environmental, not only about the resource conservation, not only the recycling, but this is a whole concept, it's a whole thought process that is required. And generally the decisions are made at the top level. So for educational institutes, I will say that the top management, the management of the institute, the management of college, the management at university level have a very, very important role to play.
Shalvi, not to interrupt you, we can't see your full-scale excellent presentation. Now we can at least. Thank you. Carry on.
Okay. The second reason which I will say that we are not having circular economy course mainstreamed is a shortage of expertise. And third is about the leadership and decision, which I was talking that the top management need to take a proactive role, need to take a proactive decision for implementation of circular economy at their educational institutions. And of course, when we talked about the Niti Aayog, that tremendous initiative that is taken by Government of India, I think that the Ministry of Education will also be taking a proactive decision about implementation of circular economy at various universities, colleges, and educational institutions across the country. So what can be done for the implementation? Where it starts from? I have put up some thoughts around, and I have also given some examples where it started in other countries. So here you can see that Utrecht University in Netherlands, they implanted an introductory course. They started from giving introductory course and as long back somewhere in 1960s. So that was a good start. And now they are at very advanced level. Their industries are also practicing circular economy. So you can see the transition from 1960 to now, like they are trying to turn completely green. Second approach has been to start it as an additional course into the educational institutions or universities. So here is an example from Shanghai University. They had a program called Zihua program, which bring together the students from all the other disciplines to learn and discuss about circular economy. So I'm not just keeping it to the very intellectual category, but I think this is fostered as a practice among the students to take it further. And third way to start with, where we have an example from Columbia University, that they started with the workshops for giving a practical experience to their students, and that helped them to use the circular economy practices later on in the businesses, at the governments or the city administration level. I have given another example about Finland, where they started this, they started quite early. They started with the giving the circular economy education to their kids. And you can see here, they started very young, and slowly this become as a practice in their life. So what can be the better way of bringing up the green generation in our country too? So I have given this some examples that how the Finland, they started somewhere in schools, and then they have taken it further, not taking much because we are shortage of time. So I will be taking a little bit fast on this. Next is about, we generally think that India is not doing anything, but the fact is that in India, circular economy is being practiced since ages. And but the thing is that some people think it is quite high level thing, but not really. We really need to ask about our in our organizations that what, when, where, why, and how we can implement circular economy in our organization. Coming to the career opportunities, many students, they may be thinking that, okay, I will learn circular economy, but what is there? What lies in future for me? So we can see nowadays there are so many opportunities, and the students who are learning circular economy can choose their career. They can be the circular design specialist. They can be circular investment specialist if they are coming from the finance background. They can design green products. They can be product life cycle managers. and many more opportunities are there. It depends on the area of your expertise, your background, and where you are heading to in terms of taking the expertise on. What we are doing, lastly, I have included some of the initiatives that we are doing nowadays. We have partnered with Mobius Foundation and doing the training programs on implementation of circular economy at educational institutions. This is one of the sector, and we are also working for implementation of circular economy at small and medium scale industries, that is SMEs, and that is also another program. If anybody interested, we are already on the social media. You can register through the program. The first batch of this educational institution is on starting in October, and second is in December. In between, we will be doing the implementation of circular economy at SMEs. Those batches will run in November 2021 and January 2022. So please feel free to register. These training programs are not having any cost involved. We are also coming up with the publications already through. We are just designing these publications. You will see that you will get the manual that will give you a stepwise guidance for implementation of circular economy at educational institutions. Similarly, for SMEs also, you will see many jargons around circular economy, but when it comes to implementation, people really get confusing, okay, what to do, where to start. So we are bringing each and every step into this implementation manuals. Other than this, there is an awareness manual. This will be available free of cost for the larger audience. And taking to the last one, we are helping the organizations and the institute to turn zero waste. There is a particular standard for it. And we are having another certification. This is a label, because many educational institutions and SMEs, they started thinking that, okay, we go circular, but where we are heading to, what we are going to get out of it. So for your information, we have a label that is called as Recirculate. And I should share that this model is awarded by the World Economic Forum. It is recognized at the international level, validated at the international level by World Economic Forum. And it is also endorsed by Government of Telangana, where we award top 5 organizations, top 5 first circular organizations, along with the Government of Telangana. And lastly, I will take this conclusion during the summarization during this session, at the end of the session. So not taking much of the time, I will just urge all the audience and all the panelists that you commit for the sustainable future by investing into the education of future circular economy leaders. Thank you so much. And over to you, sir.
Thank you, Shalini. Thank you so much for a very simple way you have elucidated your thoughts and points. And I was very correct that 10 minutes is too short a time. So Shravan just sent me a message that we have 20 minutes extra also. So you can come back to the speakers. So I said, that's very kind of you. You are a kind-hearted soul. So I'm going to come back to each one of you after you finish the sessions, asking you top 3 points which you want to say to the people. You have made some very excellent presentations, the 2 of us, and I don't discount what Anjali is going to say. It's going to be even more interesting and exciting. But before I shift to her, the 2 points which you really made very strong emphasis was that how the top leaders, the management and the institutions need to really imbibe this into the mode, so that sends a constructive, positive message. That's a very important. Yesterday, I was on a global UN Compact program where I was speaking, and there was a co-colleague, Sunita. She is based out of Malaysia, and she was speaking how exactly what you just said. You said in one couple of lines, and she was talking 1 hour or 20-minute session. So I think that's a very important point. The other point which you have mentioned 3 times, it's a Western phenomena. It's something which is a jargon. It's not like that, because you elucidated with examples, and I must congratulate you. And I think so I'm going to be the first person to lay hands on all your books, because today it is giving me an opportunity. I'm thankful to the organizers, and I am so glad that I wished myself to be the moderator, not a speaker, because I wouldn't have done so well as you are talking. So I think so. You really made the India-centric examples. I gave one on paper, and there is a low-carbon lifestyle booklet, which we will give it to the people. And I think, Shravan, you need to really I will post it to you, a link in this, and people can download. Pramod is smiling because he did a big project when he was in India with ArcelorMittal on it. And the stepwise approach, which you just said, is another interesting example. Okay, so Shravan, one request to you is you are going to put all these things together and you're going to upload in your foundation so that people can access benefits across from these three speakers who have put their presentations not in a few hours, but I'm sure they have taken time to put days together to put it. Anjali, over to you. Your time starts now. Be comfortable. Take the choice.
Thank you so much. So, well, as we are talking about circular economy, here is a small introduction of what is the definition. And as the speakers previous to me have also spoken about it, it is, yes, it is about, seeing how we can involve a product which stays longer in use. So how we can reuse, repair, remanufacture, and recycle. But going forward and seeing what the industry level experts are doing, it goes beyond just limited to these 3 or 4 factors. If you see, if you see for centuries, our economies were circular. And if you see the example in India itself, we used natural fibers that grew close to us. We made products after one life was there. So if you see over here, if you had a sari, you could use the sari into swaddles. You could then reuse the sari into, smaller where it could be used for baby nappies. And it was also more of a social gathering when people would come together, smaller artisans, craftsmen would come together to see how we could upcycle or reuse or even repair the products that we were using. I'll be focusing a little more on textile because that's my background, and seeing how circular economy also brings in the textile supply chain for education. And then we came, to the more industrial revolution where the whole focus became take, make, and dispose. And there was this huge consumption that started to happen. There was a disconnect with nature that we see. And also what the whole design model became very, and like the design model started encouraging a very limited lifespan so that it could be replaced and increase waste into landfills. So that was a very, it was something that has happened. It has depleted our environment. It has also brought in a lot of exploitation within supply chains, whether it is in the food supply chain or in the cotton supply chain. What is it that we want to do now? The challenge that we are facing today is how can we take, make, and dispose, which is the current linear economy, into something more circular, which we already were doing in the past, but how do we bring it back into a mainstream and also into a industrial situation? So if you see here, I mean, this is a very common visual. If you see jeans, our jeans, they're using it, they patch it up where there are holes. If they're, torn, then they make into bags. And even the real waste that we find in industrial industries today, where the textile industry is, we do see, them using it into even doormats and things like that. So this tradition has already been there in India. But now how do we take this back to the schools? How do we take this back to the citizens? As we all know, it's something that cannot be done alone. We'll have to bring in, it's an effort that has to be a joint effort with bringing in all the stakeholders together, starting from, researchers, entrepreneurs, industries, civil society, lawmakers, citizens, and not to forget today, the youth, the students who are tomorrow's innovators, tomorrow's entrepreneurs. Now, what is fair trade? As all of you know, but I'll just give a short intro on fair trade. Fair trade is a trading partnership that seeks greater equity in trade. And it is based on dialogue, it's based on transparency, and it's based on respect. And our focus is on trying to see how we can improve lives through, job creation, creating fair wages. By creating fair wages, can we remove poverty, strengthening communities, which could be in the food supply chain, or it could be also in the fashion supply chain. And how can we protect the environment? Because with the industrial revolution, we felt that, the resource was unlimited. Whereas today we do realize the limitation of our resource and how we need to now start, using firstly our resource efficiently, and then going it to the next level, which is the post-consumer focus, where we are going to reuse, recycle, upcycle, refurbish, and ensure that we are not putting all our waste into landfills. So it's also, if we see fair trade, it gives an individual actually a power to bring change in the world. And it also ensures that through a conscious decision in his consuming capacity, he can empower the farmers, the artisans, and the factory workers to create a fair deal for them. And that means that they can take a decision for their own lives, control their future, and even lead a dignified life that actually everyone deserves, and more so the children for whom education is priority. Now, the Fair Trade Towns movement started in 2001 in Lancashire, and the core principle is to see how we can bring multiple stakeholders to create an awareness and to see as how they can bring a change in the rules and the practicing of conventional trade. And also we see that the Fair Trade Town is a community, and they set a goal for themselves to promote fair trade in every way possible. In India, Fair Trade Towns' main focus is on sustainable consumption and production, and circular economy is an important also part of it. If you see around the world, we have around 2,000 fair trade schools, which actually teach fair trade through their curriculums. We also have, when the movement of the Fair Trade Towns came to India in 2015, we were very clear that we would bring it under the big tent approach, where we embrace the two movements, which is WFTO and Fair Trade International, so that because in India we do see that there is a requirement to move more in the mainstream industrial, as well as we have so many artisans and craftsmen who need to be embraced in this larger movement. The movement was launched in Pondicherry in 2015, where Pushpanath Krishnamurthy walked for 450 kilometers, and he's a global campaigner in Oxfam. His whole idea of walking 450 kilometers was to talk to people on the way, to students, to youth, to universities, and that's what he did. The launch happened, actually the flag off happened, where we had the environment minister, we had the tourism minister, we had local MLAs who participated, because we feel, as all the other speakers have mentioned in the past sessions, is that if the government doesn't step in and we cannot make change in policy, then it's very difficult to make systemic change just by campaigns and movements. So we focus a lot on campaigns because we feel that it is very important to create awareness. If there is an awareness, then people can also be more conscious, and then they can make conscious choices. So for example, we did a gratitude cupcake awareness, where we involved household, citizens, hotels, coffee shops to bake gratitude cake by using fair trade chocolate. And we also involved children to make thank you notes for the frontline workers during the COVID. We reached about 5,020 cakes. But by doing that, we also created a bigger awareness of, where the cocoa comes from, what happens to the cocoa farmer. So if now you ask the children who made these cupcakes or even participated in making the cards, they can tell you that, what is fair trade doing for the cocoa farmer and what does fair trade really mean. So when this type of campaigns are done, we also ensure that, we bring it to the retail stores so that consumers know where to go and find it. And once the consumer knows, then he goes back to ask for more and more fair trade products, and thus increasing not only the awareness, but even the consumption, which is the SDG 12, which is sustainable and, fair consumption. We also participate in, campaigns by others. For example, Fashion Revolution had a campaign on second-hand September, and we participate in those campaigns as well, because it is through citizens' participation that a campaign can grow in size and reach even to other people. Fairtrade has many programs, like we have the Fairtrade India Schools program, we have the campus program, we have workplace program, and we have the towns initiatives. These are all programs where we have now come up with handbooks, guidelines. We have created a lot of content for schools, for universities, for campus, and for workplaces, as well as for towns, which will then educate the people to see, okay, what does it mean? How can we teach about fair trade? How can we teach about sustainability? How can we teach circular economy, not only in schools, but also in workplaces, also in universities, because they are our biggest consumers, and they are also our tomorrow's entrepreneurs, or they will be getting into workplaces once they finish their education. So here we can show you a few of the retail stores where we are promoting the fair trade product. This was a campaign. We also have brands such as Eco Elate, which is a brand that is working. It's based out of Tirupur, and they work with sustainable cotton as well as banana fiber. So how can we bring various other fibers into our manufacturing and create this awareness even with the children in schools through our schools program? It is not only about consumption, but it is also about understanding the supply chain, as well as understanding the products that are made within the supply chain. We've, through our campaigns, we have reached out to schools, we have reached out to retails, we have reached out to brands, and we have also found sports as a very, very important platform where, because it's about team, it's about collective, it is about, doing things together. And we have found that sports also, because we do have a fair trade football, is also a very, very good platform to bring more awareness about sustainability, about circular consumption. And also what we found is, interlinking, for example, of football to something about food, because we do have fair trade Chiki from Paperboat. And then what happens is people then start understanding what it means and connecting the dots to make their consumptions more conscious and sustainable. This is again a football team where girls are playing, and we want to also show that it is about empowering, a girl child to a girl in the rural as well. So connecting the dots from urban to rural so that there is a better understanding and a bigger commitment. So our vision is for the Fair Trade Towns is a dynamic and thriving Fair Trade Towns movement that promotes sustainable development, resulting in an inclusive India. So if you see in my presentation, we are including multiple stakeholders to ensure that we can make a more sustainable result in our efforts going forward. Thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you, Anjali. Thank you very much for your very lucid presentation. And I think so you touched very aptly on the points of product life extension. You shared a lot of thoughts there. And I always felt that very own Goonj of India is also a product life extension example, and very, very pertinently they are doing. And they're also making people out of poverty, which you also emphasized very well on the inclusivity of the people involved within the trade. So I think those are glaring examples. I must also share that the point which you made on campaigns was very strong, and how you connected the dots and how you are trying to bring the girl child up in front. You reminded me of a very old example of mine, which Pramod really knows. While I was working with the small grants of UNDP GEF, with the MOEFCC now, we were trying to pick up, I was on a visit to Aditya Birla fashion brands factories in Bangalore. And there I went into the factories, and they wanted some environmental actions to be taking place. And one of the things when I saw was that they had the best of the cloth. They have this the normal public brands, which is Peter England and others, but they have the high-end brands also, which is Van Heusen and so forth. And they do it all for Gucci and all sorts of Italian brands. And there they were cutting the cloth through the CAD machines, and the waste cloth was valued at 2,000 rupees a meter, 5,000 rupees a meter, 100 rupees a meter, 500 rupees a meter. I said, by the end of the day, I gave my little knowledge which I had, that you do this, do that, we will be succeeding here, we might lose ends here. But one of the thoughts which really hit, and I said, now my fees for you are going to give me the cutouts of all these cloth which you are having. They ranged from 50 centimeter to 2 meters, because when they were doing high-end cloth, even a small warp or a weft was down wrongly, they would cut that cloth out and throw it away and not put it in shirts. And that's what the quality standards of a organization like Aditya Birla. So I used to take up those materials, and they agreed. And they said, we'll give you 19 rupees. We won't give you free. I said, that's fine. They said, we'll give you 19 rupees a kilo. I said, that's fine. I did the permutation combinations, and I said, 36 square meters in 1 kilo of cloth I'll get. Brilliant. That's great. And we turned those cloths into frocks, tailoring enterprises, back into rural areas through my NGO partners. And we sold those materials to a great extent. Exactly what you were trying to talk. I never knew about circular economy. Then I'm talking 2012. But this is something which is talking of product life extension, which is talking of repairability, which is talking about whether you call regeneration, remanufacturing. So all of you have made some excellent points. And I don't want to say again on those. But one thing which I always, and my wife taught me a lot of things, we have to be silent observers. And I'm enjoying today. And by being an observer largely, and listening to three of you. My wife does these cards. And we never buy a card in the market. And we always use, all the Rakhis which came, she took into the point, never threw anything, and these little things she teaches to the children. She's an environmental teacher, has got many awards, and I must say proudly that I am a spouse to my lady. She is a real circular economy champion, which I always see in her. So I think so these little examples are many folds, but I'll come back to Pramod and then of course to Shalini, back to you. If at all you want to, in the loss of time, I saw Pramod, you were trying to really rush in your last slide. If you want to say a few words, 3 points, if you want to say to the audience who is looking for, or they are going to publish this on the live streaming is being done probably on YouTube and I don't know where all. But if you want to say 3 points, what would you like to say those 3 points that the community at large should really apply in terms of education, what you are doing? Similarly, Shalini, the same question goes to you. And Anjali, the same question goes to you at the end. Shravan, let me know the time limit. And after these questions, how much you want me to take it forward, or if there are any questions from the audience. Pramod, over to you.
Thank you, Sodhiji. So 3 points. The first learning that I got while doing this project and observing the communities, I think among the privilege, that's whether it's Europe or within India, the tendency is to look downstream and find the solution downstream, not upstream. And the solutions, when we are looking from circular economy, that's the change, the shift that we need to have, is not about reusing or recycling, but seeing that it is produced in such a way that it is it has a life and it can be shared and it can be reused. And as I mentioned in my presentation, that most of the things, how the product will be used and thrown away is decided at the design stage. So that shift need to happen, especially among the rich, whether it's within India or within the world, with the Europe comparative kind of thing, and that's one. Second is when I was looking at from an education perspective, the biggest challenge was the life cycle assessment, and that's a challenge that people are not able to basically fathom, because all the information is not available and teachers are not confident on bringing that into the classroom. And until you are able to see a product from production to the end of life, you would be able to really see where you can intervene, and how as a consumer you can help, or what you can do to using all those strategies of sharing, refusing, refurbishing, regenerating, whatever those 9 are. But for that you need to have that life cycle, so that needs a lot of education. And companies, as you were mentioning about label and all those things, also need to produce how in terms of a fair trade is responsible sourcing to responsible production, and all those aspects need to be brought in, and all those resources need to be there so that teachers can easily find how to the life cycle to bring it into the classroom and get children engaged and involved with that. The third, the biggest, we did the design challenge and learned a lot in that process. Children are creative and all those things, but the dominant narrative is still of reusing art and craft, recycling, and all those things, where they try to produce new, basically creative material. Going back and doing that, the change that is required, and rethinking everything in a new way. I think that skill is lacking and missing in our education system, is where can you step back and relook at the thing. And I think instead of confusing with all those jargons, what we then simplified the communication is that, okay, cut down the waste to zero. So now do the life cycle and then cut down waste to zero. That's your target. So if you just look at it, if waste is being generated, how you can cut down the waste to zero. And so that then it made sense, because then you didn't talk about that 9 ladder of 9 R's or refuse, refurbish. We just took out those jargon and said, cut down your waste in that product or service to zero. And that made it easy for children to think.
So I think so, Pramod, thank you very much. And I think the audience have really benefited what you said. And I think so your 7-step approach, I wouldn't say that as a jargon at all. I think so.
That's a pedagogy. As a pedagogy, it's a different
I think
story.
it has a merit in every word, what you said or what you presented within that limitation of the time span. But let me ask you one thing. Shall I tell my wife that this is all upstream or downstream? Upstream, I think.
It's upstream. It's looking upstream. It's not downstream.
Creative thinking by class, learning. So
it's a production. It's basically, instead of thinking downstream, it's looking. It's what the design thinking is, that okay, why should I buy? I have all the resources. I can produce it from that.
Very good. Thank you.
So it's refusing.
Today I'll have a very nice dinner, because I'm going to give all that what you said to me to my wife, and she's going to be pleased. She's overhearing me. She's on the next door, but I'll say it nicely to her.
So yeah,
thank you, Pramod, for making my life very good. And next over to you, Shalini.
Yes, sir. So I'll say 3 points, and this is just an experience that is coming from the work of around 15 years and from our innovations. So society need to start somewhere, and where they can start from is segregation. So if you see, waste segregation is one of its kind of challenge in India, and that is leading to a disaster, because landfill is a problem, and then recycling is not done because plastic is mixed up quite a lot, and that's an issue actually. So society, if you say one action need to be taken by society, it's about the waste segregation. Secondly, once the segregation is done, where the material will go. So this is again another big challenge, which I should say, not only into the rural areas, but I will say more into the urban areas. We are talking a lot about the smart cities. There are 100 smart cities across the country. And if we say, are these cities smart enough to manage their waste, then we will see only 4 or 5 or 10 awards being given to some of the cities across India. So what is missing around here? I'm just going to say this statement not only because we have innovated this digital infrastructure for the waste management, but it is the fact. So once you segregate your plastic, you segregate your material, where it is going. We are quite more depending on the manual operations, whereas the technologies are having quite a potential to really change the lives, and it is having a good potential to change the cities into the circular cities. And this I can say very confidently, because we are having the mechanisms, we have designed something, we have patented it, and also we have seen some kind of examples already that we ran in the city of Hyderabad and nearby areas. And thirdly, the most important thing which we are talking a lot about nowadays is PM office is trying to take decision on circular economy implementation. The Niti Aayog has formulated this circular economy committees, and where this 9 billion metric tons of consumption is going to take us. Actually, it is, if this kind of consumption is there, and there are some policies also, like production link incentive is there, and there are so many other policies, environmental policies, that are diluted, not very much strong for the environmental conservation. So here I will say that the decision makers, ministries, and the top management of the organizations need to look into their consumption pattern, because if this is the consumption pattern, then it is going to make the earth hollow very soon, then where we are going to talk about the next generations to sustain. So we have to be very careful about the consumption. And I think the PM's office and these ministries should come up with a mandate for the industries and organizations to look into the consumption pattern and bring up a mandate that the organizations and industries should practice the circular economy by compensating it through the equivalent natural resources that they really consume. And that natural resources can be either the air, water, it can be the like lithium or anything, but some kind of mandate is really required for how to compensate what really you are taking out from the nature. Otherwise, the day is not very far where the earth is going to be hollow, the air is going to be very dirty, the water is going to be very dirty. I think we started already working on the circularity of 3 areas we have worked. Circular products, that is a standard recirculate label. Secondly is circular offices, educational institutions and buildings. And third is we are bringing up the circular economy standard for the manufacturing units and SMEs, 2 different levels. So this will help the organizations to turn circular. And for incentivizing these companies, we are tying up with the state governments so that the state governments and industry should parallelly realize whether, yeah, really something is happening in this space. This is from.
Okay, thank you very much. You know, you have touched a very important topic called the environmental compensation. And it is a very significant feature which the government is already brought into many facets, is going to bring into many areas. I'm a great fan of Indian policies, you know, and they over and over reverberate to them, and they try and learn from the others and try and bring the best in it. One of the examples, if I have to say very recently, is all of you have been saying about the committees. One I would like to say is that how the single-use plastic has come forward in raising up 120 microns. Every day I have a discussion on this issue with the industry, and sometimes they take me on this side, sometimes they take me on this side. This is right, or this is wrong, or this is wrong, or this is right. I don't know. It is a chicken and egg situation, but I very strongly feel for. And when this policy was being drawn in, the fact was that we had 50 micron bags, which was about 6 to 7 kg, 7 grams per bag. And mind you, there were to be 200 bags to be collected, or more than that, in order to really get a kilo of plastic, and that would cost 20 rupees. And by and large, the people who are engaged in our collection are largely women. And so this was never collected. And given our good habits of littering with due regards and blindly and holding my hands for an apology, that we have a carrying capacity syndrome. If we have a 1 kg bag, we will try and put in 2 kgs in it to maximize the product efficiency. But the product is not made to handle that sort of an the weight. So what it would do is, whether it's of virgin plastic or whether it's of recycled. So the 6 gram to 8 grams bag will be littered all over. It will fly and we'll get into microplastics. It will go into the drains. It will never be collected because it's not going to be remunerative and economically beneficial. So all these weighed up, when we come to 120 microns, that comes to be a 25-gram bag, and it's about 40 we have to collect. And that bag is good, sturdy bag, which is going to be used by a person 3 times. And I've been questioned, look, Sodhi, you have been professing it absolutely wrong. And if I said that if I am wrong, I may be wrong, but this is my point of view. And I have 5 thought processes for that. And that bag, 25 grams, it's made of nice hard plastic. It is going to be reused, reused, and reused. And if at all we have to pay for that bag, we will be paying an environmental compensation. Yesterday, I was buying a frock for my granddaughter, and we were at the showroom. And I never had a carry bag with myself. And so the guy said, "Isa lifafa chahiye?" Maine kaha, "Kitne ka hai?" 7 rupees. Not that I could not pay 7 rupees, but I was saying that I have done a mistake. I am not going to buy that bag because of the fact that why am I giving 7 rupees? So it acts as a deterrent. It acts as a deterrent, and that doesn't come into the picture, and that really leaves the product back into the system. And there may be hundreds of people like you who may not buy that bag, may not willing to pay for it, and may imbibe a habit to take their own bag. And that's what we were 40 years back. So I'm always for the plastic. Plastic is a wonderful material. I have no doubts about it. It goes back to the century when we got into plastic. Anyway, I don't want to miss Anjali. This is a thought process I wanted to share. We are coming to the end of the show. But certainly, thank you very much, Shalini, for giving all these thoughts of yours. Over to Anjali.
Yes. So for me, the 3 things which I feel are very, very important is, one is it's a myth actually that circular economy or sustainability is extremely expensive. And you know that it's very difficult and hard to do. But I feel that more awareness has to be created on that. More discussions and conversations and dialogues have to be done. More case studies have to be shown that this is a myth, and the damage that is done, if we only see the value of a product, but we do not understand the damage that it does to the people or to the environment who have made this product, if they are, then what is the cost of that product actually? You can't have a $3 t-shirt on a shelf when you know that there has been an exploitation that has happened in the supply chain as well as in the environment. So I think there is a myth around sustainability and circular economy being very expensive. And that myth has to be cleared by more case studies, more workplaces, more SMEs going through it, and proving that that is not the case. The other thing I feel is, especially in the area of education, it is extremely important to bring this actually within our education's curriculum so that children are taught from a very early age. Because unfortunately, it is not like the olden days when, we were living in joint families and we would see our grandparents and mothers do recycle, reuse. So it's no more in our visibility as a family nucleus today. So it's so important that, children find this in a curriculum in their schools, in part of their education. It should be there in universities and colleges as well as something which is mandatory, so that, people become more aware, because they are tomorrow's consumers and they are also tomorrow's, entrepreneurs. So I think it's important. And the third thing I feel is, one is you teach, and that is one type of an experience. But what we have seen in Fairtrade through the schools program is, when we connect the student to either the farmer and he gets to meet him face to face, or we connect the students to the workplace or to the factories. So what happens is, what they have learned, they will experience, and what they experience, they don't forget. And also one is book knowledge. That's nice. But what we have been doing through the Fair Trade Schools program is also a lot of activities, a lot of role play. So that becomes something very real to the children. So I think it's important that we have this interconnectedness between the education as well as the, the supply chain and the consumer aspect of recycling, reuse, upcycling. So children can see it visually and understand it better. So these were my 3 points that I would like to highlight.
Thank you, Anjali. They were fantastic. I mean, I think you really hit the nail when you said that C and sustainability, circular economy and sustainability is not expensive. It needs more dialogues. It needs more case studies. It needs to be understood. It needs to be brought into the mainstream. I think so. All three of you actually mentioned this. If I have to say this, now I'm trying to be more analytical back in, and I'm trying to see that same thing. And I gave you the example of reduction when I was not trying to buy that carry back. So reduce is a very important aspect into the whole circular economy domain. But I think so. Thank you all. I have no words of appreciation, honestly, and I'm not trying to please you, that you three were taught on with a lot of precision and lot of experience you bring in, both in the terms of learning of what needs to be and how to unlearn that learning and then relearn. So all that sort of a thing, I think so. I've written about 10 pages of the notes. I would never have written 10 pages had I been speaking myself. So thank you once again for all your knowledge, and I'm going to use them because you have shared it in public domain.
Thank you.
So thank you very much. And thanks, Shravan Kumar. If you have any thought, any question from the public, which is there, they are still there with us. Over to Shravan Kumar to his final comments.
Thank you very much, sir. It's indeed been a very learning experience for me, as well as I'm pretty much sure that participants will have a greater insight and inspiring learning from this parallel session. Sir, it's time to note down the main key points which we have taken from this parallel session, and that can be forwarded to respected Kartikeya sir, who will be delivering the concluding point for both days in the concluding plenary. So if I can get it.
So when is the plenary? Today or tomorrow?
Today only, sir, just after this session.
Okay.
Means, yeah.
So we'll close this session and I'll send you on the WhatsApp 3 or 4 major points, what these colleagues have shared and said. Okay?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
That'll be fair with all the participants? Or if each participant wants to write one point and they can write it and put it together and send it on the WhatsApp, and I'll put 2 or 3 points and then you can forward them to Kartikeya. Will that be okay, Shravan?
Yes, sir. It's as quickly as possible, sir, because right now I think, sir, will be entering into the plenary and.
Okay, I'll send it quick. I'll do it quick.
Yes.
Bye for all of you. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.
Sir, if it can be shared in this group as well, so I can forward it, because one person.
I will be putting in the group, that common group which you have developed. I will put in
Yes,
that.
sir.
Okay.
Sure, sir. Thank you
Thank
so
you
much.
very
Sir.
much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.